Today I'm going to be running you through the Native Instruments plugin Massive and the FL Studio sampler, going through some of the basic and extreme functions built into each program. Massive is a wavetable software synthesizer plugin manufactured by Native Instruments for use in music production. The software can be used as a VST plugin within a digital audio workstation such as FL Studio, or it can be used as a standalone program. My digital audio workstation of choice is FL Studio. Massive has 3 oscillators with 85 different wavetables. Here they are listed here. If you scroll down, there's also a hidden one at the bottom called E-Bass Pulse. Since there's 3 oscillators and a choice of 85 different wavetables, this allows you to create a wide range and variety of unique sounds within Massive. Within these oscillators, you can alter the pitch, the wavetable position, the intensity, and the amp of each oscillator. At the top of each oscillator, there are even more modes such as spectrum, bend, bend plus, bend minus, bend plus and minus, and formant. This allows you to control your sound even more. These oscillators and the choice of 85 different tables and the ability to change all the adjustable knobs in Massive allows you to create very unique sounds and customize them to the nth degree, making your sounds so unique and different within the music landscape. Next, within Massive, there are 2 filter sections within the program allowing you to filter certain aspects of your oscillators. So here are the effects listed: low pass 4, low pass 2, high pass 4, high pass 2, all pass, double notch, band pass, band reject, scream, daft, comb and acid. There are 3 adjustable knobs, but not every single one of the filters uses all 3 knobs. So for example, high pass 4 only uses cutoff and resonance and leaves the middle knob as not applicable. After this section, we have a simple master section on the right. This allows you to control your main volume output from Massive. So if your noise is distorting, you'll be able to see here on the right on the soundbar, and you'll be able to turn it down accordingly. You can also control the panning of the entire Massive patch here by simply dragging it right if you want the output to come out the right speaker, and to the left for output out of the left speaker. Moving down from here, we have 3 tabs, 2 effect boxes and an EQ. The effect box comes with 17 effects, which are listed here: reverb, small reverb, flanger positive, flanger mono, flanger negative mono, chorus, chorus mono, chorus assemble, phaser, phaser mono, delay, delay synced, dimension expander, classic tube, teletube and Browner tube. These effects box come with 4 adjustable knobs. These different adjustable knobs are available here, which can control the depth, size and rate if the effect warrants any of them. On the right of these 2 boxes is an EQ with 4 knobs controlling low shelf, boost, with 4 knobs controlling low shelf, boost, frequency and high shelf, allowing you to control the frequencies you want more dominant in your sound. Below this, there are 4 envelopes and 4 LFO tabs. By default, the 4th envelope is the primary envelope. Within the envelopes, you can control the delay, the attack, the level, the decay, and the release of your sound. You can also assign envelopes to various adjustable knobs within Massive. For example, applying a long attack envelope to a cutoff on a low pass filter. This would mean that the cutoff of the low pass filter would change, so you can have it so it fades, the cutoff knob fades back if it's got a long attack, meaning that it can really spice up your sounds and take them to that next level once again. For example, applying a long attack envelope to the cutoff on a low pass filter. You can then adjust how much you want the envelope to impact the filter by clicking on the number and pulling down or up. This effect would make the high frequencies fade out. You can also assign envelopes to oscillators, like so. So for example, if you apply envelope 2 to an amp and you've got a long attack on the envelope, if you drag up, this will mean that the amp will fade down, turning down the sound of that oscillator slowly as the sound progresses if you've got a long chord, for example. Next to the envelopes are the LFOs. An LFO is a low frequency oscillator which allows you to create a rhythmic pulse or a sweep to your sound. Similar to envelopes, you can apply an LFO to any adjustable knob within Massive. For example, applying to the cutoff on a low pass filter would make it fade in and out, but on beat and in the rhythm. Within the LFO there is an internal envelope which allows you to control the attack and decay of the LFO, which is here. You can also select which curve you would like from the 31 available, which is here. And you can also move the curve to where you would like it to start. In the bottom left of the program, there is a noise tab, which allows you to add noise such as white noise to your sound. There are 12 noises which are listed here, and 2 adjustable knobs. White noise, bright noise, brown noise, tape hiss, metallic, amp noise, paper, AC power, water pipes, high metallic, murmur, and aluminium. These noises are good for creating like one-shot drum sounds within Massive, so if you use white noise you can create a snare from something like that. The 2 adjustable noises are amp, so amp controls the volume, and colour is like how dominant and how frequent it is in a way. So for example, if it's white noise, if the colour's on max, the white noise is going to be very sharp and very loud and crisp, while if it's low it's going to be like little fuzzy white noise, if that makes any sense. And finally, there are 2 inserts which allow you to add 2 simple effects to your sound. There are once again 2 controllable knobs, and there are 8 inserts which are listed here. Simple delay, sample and hold, bit crusher, frequency shifter, high pass and low pass filter, sine shaper, parabolic shaper, and hard clipper. With bend modes you can raise and lower the wavetable's readout speed, either at the beginning or end of the wavetable, which warps the wavetable similar to warping any sound within a digital audio workstation. This changes the tone of the bass without affecting the pitch. This tool is mainly used for complex basses, but can be used for many other things as well. It's important to understand how the intensity knob functions in different warp modes. So within Spectrum, when the intensity is turned all the way up, the Spectrum knob keeps the wavetable as it sounds by default. So how it would be like played through iTunes or Spotify or something similar like that. Turning the intensity down will cause the sound to morph into a sine wave regardless of what table is being used. So for example, here we have a dirty pump sound, which sounds like this. If we have Spectrum on and turn the intensity all the way down, makes it into a sine wave. Next there's bend minus and bend plus. With the intensity turned all the way down, the bend minus and bend plus modes keep the wavetable as it sounds by default. Like the Spectrum knob with the intensity all the way up, it will play it how it sounds on iTunes and Spotify. This means with the intensity down in these modes, the oscillator is basically in Spectrum mode. So it plays the wavetable as it normally should. So if we're in bend and we have this all the way down, it should play it at normal. But when we're all the way up, when the sound is all the way down, it plays how it does when it's on iTunes or Spotify. But when it's all the way up, that's when we get the bend plus wave format coming through. And this is the same with minus, so if it's on minus, it'll play how it should sound when it's got the bend minus 10. Bend plus and minus. Within this mode, turning the intensity knob all the way to the left puts the oscillator in bend minus mode. But when turning to the right, it puts it in bend plus mode. And all the way to the middle is basically Spectrum mode. A common misconception is that the 3 bend modes are 3 entirely different things from Spectrum, which isn't actually the case. The only reason bend plus and minus mode is available is to make it possible to modulate between the 2 modes, which isn't possible without that function. So if you've got this on, you can use a macro to like filter between which ones you want to be using. But if you've only got one mode like being used, you won't be able to do that. Next I'm going to run you through the macros. Down here we have 4 macros linked to a keyboard, which is here. In the macro section we have 8 adjustable knobs which we can apply to any adjustable setting within Massive. So for example, if we have a low pass filter on, we can click and drag macro 1, and it's already dragged, but if we drag it down, it will cover the entire cutoff, and as we turn this, it will change where this knob is, which is quite useful for making, in a live sense it's quite useful, and it could be also quite useful for presets as well. So if you've got a specific effect knob here, you can change it and it could completely change the sound. So for example, this is it with it off, so that's what our sound sounds like, and when it's all the way up, you can't hear it because the cutoff's all the way up. So we'll take this down a little bit. There we go, so drag it down, sounds like that. And get a nice balance and make some quite nice sounds basically. These macros can be very useful for making drastic or very subtle changes to your sound with one simple movement. You can also rename the macros just for simple, like for simplicity. So we'll call this one 1, and that means we can keep track of what all the macros control. Within Massive there's a voicing tab which allows you to make your sound bigger and more dominant. Here under voicing you can pick how many times the sound plays. So if the unisons is on 2, it will play the patch twice. So for example, here we've got simple C, it plays that once, and then if we wind this up, it plays it like over each other, so it's like a choir almost. Maximum allows you to change the max number of this, so 64 is the maximum, and you can have 64 voices. You can also choose if you want your notes to be played all together or one at once. So monophone means that only one note can play at a time. So if we press play, it's only going to play the C, it's going to ignore the E. But if you have it on polyphono, that means you can play notes and chords. You can play chords and chord progression. Mono rotate allows you to use something called trills within your notes, because mono rotate also only allows you to use one note. On the right here, under unisono spread, you have the pitch cutoff and pan position. These are very important controls related to voicing of a sound within Massive, and it can once again allow you to create a very complex sound within Massive. Panning allows you to move your sound from mono to stereo, making it pan from either left to right. And pitch cutoff creates detuning between the voicings. So basically, if you've got more than one voice, it'll make them separate almost, maybe having like 0.01 of a detune, so that the sound doesn't sound too loud, and it fits a bit nicer together when this is on. So if we've got two voices, they'll sound different, which is good basically because it makes your sound more real in a way. Next we've got pan position. Pan position lengthens the separation of these voices. Basically, pan position lengthens the separation of the voices. The modulation oscillator in Massive makes it quite unique, and it can be used to create more aggressive sounds within Massive. Phase is the easiest to hear within Massive. You can also select which oscillator you want these modulations to affect, so 1 being oscillator 1 and so on. Phase is the easiest to hear. You can apply phase to one of the 3 oscillators. The modulation is pitch, so you need to keep that in mind when you're setting the tuning of your phase, so that it's not off tune with the other oscillators. Modulating the phase knob can add a great movement to your sound, which there's only one adjustable knob here, so depending on which one you have turned on, or which ones you have turned on, you can alter the knob accordingly. But if you click on the names of each, you can change the knob that way. Ring mod and position work in the same way as phase, but create different changes to your sound. And filter FM is the same concept as phase, except it sends the modulation to the filters, hence why it says filters 1 and 2. The insert effects in Massive are all about distortion. You'll find the parabolic shaper, sine shape, and the hard clipper here. These will have very different effects on your sound depending on where you put them to be positioned in the routing tab. Next I'm going to be walking you through the FL Studio sampler. First of all, we're going to start with a file selection. First button here is the load sample file, which opens a file explorer window and allows you to load in a sample. The next button is locate sample in browser. This means that it opens the browser to the location where the sample is. So the sample that you have loaded, when you press this button, it will show where it is located within the browser on the left of FL Studio. and the X is to remove the sample from the sampler channel. Next we have content. These options control how the sample and metadata within FL Studio are handled. So keep on disk. This basically allows you to use larger memory samples within the FL Studio sampler, because if you enable this, it won't store the sound within the temporary memory dedicated to FL Studio. So when this is selected, the maximum memory available to each audio clip will be 2 GB. Next we have a sample rate option. If your sample rate is not recorded at the same sample rate as your audio device, which is currently set to, so for example my audio rate right now is 44,100 Hz. This option can improve the audio quality of the sound. Load regions, which is already selected here, loads the region markers embedded in some wave samples, including ZGR files and Rex loop files. This data is used for time stretching, like slice and stretch options, and for more accurate sample processing. So, for example, tempo detection. If this data is not loaded, then FL Studio will do on-the-fly analysis, which may not be as accurate as the embedded data. Or if the embedded data is incorrect, deselecting this may improve results. So then there's load slice markers. This loads beat/slice markers if it's embedded in the sample data. This data is used for time stretching once again. So if we press this, there's nothing there because there's nothing embedded within the file. Next we have the playback section. So first here we have start offset. This offsets where the sample start point is relative to the start of the sample data. So if we press play and if we move this, it will change where the sample starts from. Use loop points. This makes the sample loop. When the sample contains loop points, the play position starts at the sample beginning, and when it reaches the loop end point, jumps back to the loop start point and repeats this process while the note is held. And ping pong loop. This is the play position bounced back and forth between the loop and start and the loop and end point. So basically, if we have this selected, which it won't show because it's too small of a sample, it will reverse this side and put it at the end, and it will fade into each other. Next we have the time stretching and pitch shifting section. Pitch changes the sample pitch while preserving its length. If the mode here is set to resample, it will be automatically changed to auto after tweaking this knob. For example, there we go, changes to auto. MUL, which is a time multiplier. This knob is used to modify the sample length. For example, you can quickly stretch the sample to twice its original length without you needing to use the time knob, which is right next to it. But the time knob, which is the sample duration, this is the time it takes to play the sample from start to end. So depending on the stretch mode, the consequences of just in time will be different. To maintain a constant pitch as a project tempo is automated, use mode. So next we have pre-computed effects, which is this knob here. Well, this button here, sorry. First we have remove DC offset. This removes any DC offset or bias from the sample. DC offset is a bias in the average of the waveform above or below the zero line. This can cause clicks, distortion, or FX plugins to behave badly. So this basically helps and removes any of that nasty sound from our sample. Reverse polarity flips the waveform vertically. So for example, if we press this, it flips it directly. Normalize maximizes the sample volume without clipping. Fade stereo creates a stereo fade from left to right for the channel of the sample. Reverse reverses the sample. Swap stereo switches the left and right channels of the loaded sample. So there's reverse, there's swap stereo. Sample start, or SMP start. This control redefines the start point by trimming the sample to the start section, updating the view to reflect this. So this is extremely similar to start offset, but this physically moves the sample. Length redefines the sample end and updates the view to reflect this. So this allows us to stretch the sample and remove any unwanted noises. So say we just want the beginning, we get the beginning, and so on. It is automatically adjusted at the end because it wants to load the full sample. Fade in applies a quick fade into the sample, and fade out applies a quick fade out of the sample. Crossfade allows you to crossfade the sample to create smooth loop sections. And trim threshold. Trim threshold allows you to change the threshold of volume at which FL Studio detects silence. So FL Studio will automatically remove this silence, but you can twist this knob to turn up the threshold at how much it removes. So for example, if we turn this up, it'll remove all that end silence quite quickly. Next we have another effects tab. First of all, we have boost. This amplitude's the level control, so this just simply boosts it and makes it more distorted. This also makes, there's a clip button here, which this clip button stops the sample from clipping, which can be very good for some distorted sounds. So then we have an EQ knob. This is a bipolar knob, so left means cut and right means boost. Ring modulation amount applies a sine wave modulation to the sample amplitude. So here we've got a little bit of sine wave. And ring mode frequency is the sine wave's frequency multiplied by the sample. So there we go. If we turn this down, it'll be harsher. Cutoff is a low pass filter cutoff frequency, and resonance is the frequency peak at the low pass cutoff frequency. Reverb is used to add room vertebration to your sample. Two different modes of reverb are available here. A, which is a closer source in a tight space, and B is a distant source and a larger. Stereo delay applies a short delay between the left and right sides of the sample, creating a pseudo stereo effect. Turning the knob right moves the left channel forward, while turning it left moves the right channel forward. And then we have pitch bend. This applies pitch bend to the sample, useful for drum samples and special effects. The knob is bipolar again, so left is decelerating the slow sound, while right is accelerating the slow sound to a stop. If we go to the sample view, this displays the loaded sample, be it a MP3, an OGG, a WAV file. If you left click on the sound, it will preview the sound, but if you right click on the sound, it will pop up saying reload, save as, edit, detect tempo, and get property. Reload, you can use this command to reload samples when they were altered in the external applications. Save as allows you to save the sample. Edit opens the integrated wave editor, which is called Edison, with the current sample, allowing you to trim it down. So I'll just show you, here we are, Edison. It allows you to remove certain bits, and then you can use all these buttons to move it, but we're not talking about Edison, so we're just going to leave that. Detect tempo detects the tempo of the sample. Get properties opens the Windows property dialog for the sample file, so for example the file size. Next we have the envelope section. This section behaves much like a standard attack, decay, sustain and release envelope, but they've been enhanced with a few additional properties such as delay, hold and amount, and you can control the envelope's property by using the knobs along the bottom, by dragging them up and down. Delay can be used to add a gap between the start of a note and the envelope attack state, so if we twist this it moves the sample. Attack controls the attack length of the envelope, and there's also tension below the knob which controls the convex and concave shape of the curve. So we can bend it up or bend it down. Hold holds the attack at its maximum level for a period of time before the decay starts. Decay controls the decay length of the envelope, and tension, which is also below this one, this also again controls the curve. Sustain determines the sustain level of the envelope. Release determines the release length of the envelope, and there's another tension knob below this which controls the curve again. On the right of this we have an LFO section. This applies an LFO modulation to pan, volume, cutoff, resonance and pitch settings. You can choose from 3 LFO shapes, sine, triangle and square, which are across the top here. The shape selector is located in the top left corner of the LFO section. Delay may be used to add a gap between the start. Attack sets the attack length. Amount is how much LFO there is, and speed controls the frequency, the speed of the LFO. Then on the bottom there are 2 buttons. Tempo. Turning this option on makes the lengths of decay, attack, speed tempo based. So whatever you change the tempo within FL Studio to, this will then link up with that. And then global, turn this option on applies the current LFO setting globally, so that it does not restart in the beginning of each note. Next, right of this we have a filter section. This section controls the mod X and the mod Y modulation sources, which are here along the top. By default, modulation X controls the cutoff of a filter, and modulation Y controls the resonance. The drop-down menu selects the filter type, which is here. So here are all the filters, and you can left-click to choose from the fast low-pass filter. This has a light CPU load and is a low-pass filter, so frequencies above the cutoff band are cut. Then there's a low-pass filter. There's a regular low-pass filter, a band-pass filter, which frequencies either side of the cutoff band are cut out, a band-stop filter, which is frequencies at the cutoff band are cut off, and then there's a low-pass 2, which is a low-pass filter with a steep cutoff. There's a state variable filter, which is a low pass, and then there's a state variable low pass with a steep cut. We also have a panning knob, which allows us to have an LFO which pans our sound. Next, we're moving into channel settings. This miscellaneous channel settings page contains various generator settings and are available for all instrument channels, including VSTs. So first we have level adjustment. This section controls the channel, so it controls the panning from left to right, the volume of the channel, and the modulation from X and Y, which we've just went through. Next we have the polyphony max. If you drag this up and down, you can set the max polyphony. I'm so saying that wrong. To reduce the maximum number of voices the channel will play simultaneously. So this is similar to massive within the max voices. The purpose of this setting is primarily to lower the number of voices so you can reduce CPU load. For single voice playback, use cut groups instead. On the right of this we have a slide knob. This is the portamento time. The portamento time is used to set the slide length when portamento is turned on, which is the porta button, and is also used for overlapping notes in monophonic mode, which is this button. The more the knob is turned right, the longer the slide. Monophonic, turning on the mono button sets the instrument to monophonic, which means you can only play one note at a time. In this note, when two notes overlap, the overlap amount does not matter. They will slide one to another. So if it starts on C and has an A over it, it will slide up to that note. You can set the transition amount with the slide knob. Then porta, turning this on, it enables the portamento feature for this channel, which sliding the pitch from note to note. In FL Studio, the portamento transition also includes all other properties. Next we have the time section, which has 3 adjustable knobs. There are 2 filters available in this section: a gate that truncates the note events when they pass at a specific limit, and a filter that shifts note start time. There's gate. Gate is the time interval set with this knob. The time interval set with this knob defines the maximum possible length of a note event in the channel. For example, the long notes are truncated to the set length. Then we have the shift knob. You can turn this knob to right to delay notes triggering. Then we have the swing knob. The swing mix is a multiplier knob within the channel rack swing control. This allows you to independently apply varying amounts of swing to channels instead of to the entire pattern. Next we have velocity / keyboard tracking, which is this one on the far right. There are 2 trackers, one for velocity and one for keyboard key number. The keyboard tracker links the note number, i.e. note pitch, to the cutoff, resonance and panning properties of the note. For example, you can set the keyboard tracker so higher notes move the cutoff frequency to a higher value. The velocity tracker works in the same way, using a note's velocity to modulate target controls. So volume/key modes, if you click vol to set the properties for the velocity tracker, which is pan, modulation, X and Y. Both trackers remain active regardless which one is currently selected. To disable the effects of the tracker, reset the adjustable knobs. Mod X and Y, these are the 2 destinations for the keyboard tracker modulation. And mid value, which is mid. For both trackers there is a middle value where no offsets are generated. Higher values generate positive offsets and lower values generate negative ones. For the keyboard tracker, the middle value of a note's pitch, i.e. C5 in FL Studio, determines the non-offset point. The velocity tracker uses the note's velocity. Next we have cut groups. Cut groups are arbitrary numbers used to identify instrument channels. This basically allows you so that sounds don't loop into each other. So cut basically allows the current channel will slice will silence if there's any other activity within the channel. And then by is how much it's cut. Next we have an arpeggiator. This section lets you add a real-time non-destructive arpeggiator effect to the sequence of an instrument. To use the arpeggiator, select the direction from the icons in the top left, so up, down, stuff like that. The arpeggiator can operate in two modes: classic arpeggiator that uses any chords present in the channel node data, or it can use a predefined chord template. The mode is selected from the arpeggiator chord option, which is here, and we have a load of options. First knob we have is the time knob. This selects the delay between the successive notes generated by the arpeggiator. The gate knob gates the arpeggiator notes. This results in shorter notes and a more staccato sound. Slide, if you can check this option to make the arpeggiator slide between notes. This option will not work with instruments that do not support slides. Range lets you set the arpeggiator range in octaves. Repeat, this is the dependent on the range value, so it determines how many times a note or arpeggiated chord is repeated. And then we have chord, which select none if you want the arpeggiator to progress with a step of 12 semitones, 1 octave within the specified octave range. Select auto or auto sustain to select the arpeggiator in classic mode. Next we have echo, delay and fat mode. This section creates echoes for the channels based on the echoing note events. So first we have the feedback knob. This sets the volume of the echoes. If this knob is centered, echoes have the same volume as the original note. Turn it left creates the fading out echoes, and turn it right increases the volume of the successive echoes. Pan sets the panning of the echoes. Cutoff mod X sets the filter cutoff value of the echoes, and resonance mod Y sets the resonance value of the echoes. Pitch sets the pitch offset of the echoes, and time sets the delay period between the echoes in the unit of beats. Number of echoes, which is here, sets the number of echoes generated for each note. It is recommended to keep this number down for a low CPU usage. Ping pong, if turned on, the pan value will bounce when it reaches 100% left to right. And fat mode, this is a special mode of echo delay effect, which makes subtler echoes with alternate panning. Finally, we're moving on to the bottom. This is the preview keyboard. This allows you to preview the channel instrument. Left clicking on the panel keyboard plays the sound. To set the root note or the root key, you can right click on any, and if you press reset, this sets the note back to the original bass note. If you enable main pitch, if you turn this option on, the channel's pitch won't be altered when you change the main pitch value. Add key, this option only affects multi-sampled instruments where more than one sample is spread across the keyboard. Plugins with single sample stretched across the keyboard or synthesizer are not affected. When it's on, fine tune, you can use this knob to fine tune the bass note.